So you want to own a nightclub. Velvet rope, bottle service, a line stretching down the block every Friday night. The kind of business where cash seems to just arrive. Here's the part almost nobody accounts for before opening night. In most major cities, the single most expensive thing you'll ever buy for this business isn't the sound system. It's a piece of paper. In many cities, liquor licenses are capped by law. A fixed number exists, and once they're gone, changing hands only when an existing license holder sells. In markets like New York City, a full liquor license can cost anywhere from the tens of thousands of dollars into six figures, sometimes before you've paid a single dollar in rent. Miss that step, or misjudge how competitive it is, and your nightclub concept dies before the doors ever open. Assuming you clear that hurdle, you're now funding sound, lighting, a stage, a bar built to serve hundreds of people at once, and a design meant to photograph well. Because in 2026, a club's social media presence often does more marketing than any ad campaign could. All of that before a single guest walks through the door. Here's where the money actually comes from. Alcohol margins in a nightclub are enormous. A pour that costs you a few dollars can sell for 10 times that, sometimes more. But the real engine, the number that actually funds this entire business, is bottle service. A bottle of liquor that costs a club $30 or $40 wholesale can sell to a VIP table for $3, $4, sometimes $500, purely for the privilege of a reserved table and a bit of theater when it arrives with sparklers. A handful of big spending tables on a good night can out-earn the entire rest of the room combined. But there's a ceiling built directly into the business that most owners can't do anything about. Fire code capacity. Your venue can only legally hold so many people at once, which means your maximum possible revenue on any given night is fixed the day the city inspector signs off on your occupancy limit. You can raise prices, you can't raise the room. And then there's the risk unique to nightlife. Cultural relevance has a shelf life, and it's shorter than almost any other business. A club can be the hottest reservation in the city for 18 months and completely irrelevant by the 2-year mark, as the exact same crowd that made it famous moves on to whatever opens next. Your rent, your staff, your liquor license fees don't get cheaper just because the room that used to sell out on Fridays only pulls a third of that now. Nobody demonstrates both the highs and the collapse of this business better than Peter Gatien. Through the 1980s and 90s, Gatien built one of the most famous nightlife empires in American history out of New York City, Limelight, built inside a converted church, alongside the Tunnel, the Palladium, and Club USA. At his peak, Gatien's clubs were cultural landmarks, drawing celebrities and tens of thousands of paying guests a week, across multiple venues simultaneously. The collapse didn't come from the clubs losing popularity. It came from exactly the vulnerability every cash-heavy nightlife business carries: the money. Federal investigators spent years building a case against Gatien, first over allegations tied to drug activity at his venues, charges a jury ultimately acquitted him of, but the government came back with something harder to fight: tax evasion, tied to cash being skimmed from the club's enormous nightly revenue rather than properly reported. In 1999, Gatien pleaded guilty. By 2003, he was deported to his native Canada. Reports at the time put what he had left in his pocket at around $500, after building and running one of the most famous nightlife empires the country had ever seen. Compare that to how the most successful nightlife operators run this business today. Modern hospitality groups, the kind that now operate portfolios of nightclubs, restaurants, and day clubs together under one company, treat cash handling and tax compliance as seriously as any other line of the business, specifically because they've watched what happened to operators who didn't. They diversify revenue across restaurants, private events, and daytime pool clubs, so no single venue's fading popularity can sink the whole company. And they treat rebranding and reinvestment as a scheduled cost of doing business, refreshing a room's concept every few years, instead of riding one identity until it quietly dies. So let's run the actual numbers. The good year, your club holds a valid, fully paid-off liquor license, your bottle service program is disciplined and well-marketed, you're reporting cash accurately instead of skimming it, and you've built at least one additional revenue stream: a restaurant concept, private event bookings, a daytime version of the space, so the business doesn't live or die on Friday and Saturday night alone. Margins on alcohol and bottle service, run properly, can be some of the best in hospitality. The bad year. Your concept starts losing cultural relevance right as your lease renewal hits a higher rent. Your fixed costs, the license, the staff, the insurance, stay exactly the same as the room gets quieter. And if cash ever got handled loosely along the way, that's precisely the kind of paper trail an audit eventually finds. The club that once had a line down the block can go from full to failing faster than almost any other business model, because the entire product was never really the alcohol. It was being the place everyone wanted to be seen, and that, more than anything else you're selling, is the one thing you can't actually control. Here's the sentence that actually explains this entire business. Owning a nightclub was never really a bet on a building, a bar, or even a sound system. It's a bet on being culturally relevant for exactly as long as your fixed costs can survive without it. And the moment either the crowd moves on, or the money stops being reported the way it's supposed to be, the business ends far faster than it began. Peter Gatien built an empire out of being the place to be. He lost it to $500 in an envelope, and a government that finally found the actual paperwork.